Then we have fish, of course, tuna. So this is
I
a
thought you
brand
were
of,
actually going to pull out a real fish.
not today. Dr. Viv, I have too much fun with you. Not today. Maybe next time I'll go fishing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Health Matters podcast by Sorogi. I am your host today, Dr. Vivian Ayuk. And joining me on the podcast today is a wonderful, wonderful registered dietitian. I should get to introduce herself, but someone I have been wanting to get back on the show for a very long time. And that is Miss Tariro Savoy. Tari, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Viv. As always, it's a pleasure working with you, and I'm happy to be back to talk to you about something that is close to my heart, right? Nutrition, healthy eating. So, as you mentioned, I am a registered dietitian, nutritionist. I'm also a certified diabetes care and education specialist. So, what that means is I work with people who have diabetes or other chronic conditions to help them navigate nutrition in a way that is science based, culturally sensitive, but personalized and realistic for their daily lives. So I also work with people who just want to partner with a dietitian to figure out what works for them in choosing a healthy dietary pattern. So for me, it's understanding and recognizing that food is not just nutrients that somebody is taking. So for example, I love mangoes, right? I actually have some mangoes at my desk. So what that means is when I eat a mango, whether it's dried mango like this one or a fresh mango that I got from the store, I'm always taken back to my childhood, climbing those mango trees with either my siblings, my cousins, some friends in the neighborhood. And it just brings a smile to my face as I remember. And that's what food does to people. It's a place where they go back to their whatever happy place they have, eating with their families, their culture, their heritage. So that's what I incorporate when I work with people and talk about nutrition, healthy eating, healthy lifestyles. And today I'm happy to talk to you about protein, one of the most important nutrients in managing diabetes.
Awesome. Thank you for that. It's funny you brought mangoes. I know you must really, really love mangoes because the last
Yes.
time we spent some time talking about mangoes and climbing
Yes.
mango trees, you love mangoes. So I'm glad you mentioned we're talking about proteins today. And I don't know if you've noticed on your end as well. It's like all our favorite foods now seems to have added protein in them. There seems to be a new emphasis on protein. So today I wanted us to just spend some time addressing these macronutrients
Okay.
and to get to the bottom of it. Do we really
Okay.
have a protein problem? But
Okay.
before we get there, how about maybe just a brief description? What's a protein?
Protein, as you mentioned, is a macronutrient. So, along with carbohydrates and fat, it means that our bodies need it in larger amounts compared to, say, what we call micronutrients, nutrients that are needed in micro doses, like your iron, your magnesium, and so forth. So, as part of those macronutrients, the three macronutrients, protein is needed by the body for various functions. The body needs it to transport different nutrients or substances in the body. If you think of hemoglobin, it carries oxygen, right? So the hemoglobin protein carries oxygen throughout the body. Or if you think about fighting infection or fighting diseases, our immune function, protein does that. So as you might have said sometimes, I feel like I'm coming down with something. I feel like I'm catching a cold or something. That's your body fighting, or your proteins that are fighting diseases and being part of that immune system. We also need protein for fluid balance. We need protein for maintaining a host of many functions within the body. That could be another topic because protein has so many uses in the body. But what I want to emphasize, Dr. Viv, is that no one nutrient is more important than the other. Each nutrient, whether it's a macronutrient or a micronutrient, has a function within the body. Iron has a function, protein has a function. So there is no my eye is more important than my leg kind of thing. But I'm happy to talk to protein and its relationship with blood sugar management and weight management as well.
All righty.
Mhm.
Does eating food with protein help you feel fuller? And does that help manage cravings?
Yes, it does. So research is always finding out new information about these different nutrients. So with protein, it has what we call a high satiety value. So what that means, it helps us feel full quicker. And actually, when we compare it with carbohydrates and fat, it helps us to feel fuller for even a longer time. So if I have a meal, for example, if for breakfast, that is a slice of toast with jam. So that's carbohydrate, especially because it's just the bread and the jam in terms of macronutrients. And then on another day, I choose to have whole wheat toast with boiled eggs. So now I have protein and I have carbohydrates. If I was to make a comparison of how I felt throughout the day, by mid morning, just with the high carb meal of bread and jam, I'll probably have grabbed some more snacks by mid morning because now I'm hungry quicker. But a protein packed meal, like with the eggs and carbohydrates, I'm going to feel full quicker, so I'm going to eat less and I'm going to stay fuller for a longer time. So my blood sugars are also going to rise gently over time. So yes, if I eat a higher protein meal compared with one that doesn't have protein, that will definitely help with those cravings.
That's amazing. So, not just do they help stabilize blood sugar levels, they also help you stay fuller for a longer period of time. So, you're not consuming too much calories. And that also helps for those who are trying to lose weight as well.
Yes, because protein is such a fantastic nutrient because once your body digests it, it's broken down into its building blocks, which are called amino acids. There is research that's showing that after a meal, there is higher levels of circulating amino acids in the body, and there's also higher circulation of anti-hunger hormones. So hormones that actually prevent you from feeling hungry and make you feel full. So yes, there's different mechanisms that won't go into today, but protein does help a lot with that.
Oh, I'm sure everybody wants to know what are good examples of proteins. Let's start. I know we have animal based proteins and plant based proteins.
So there are two kinds of sources of protein. I'm sure we've heard a lot about animal sources of protein and plant-based sources of protein. It doesn't matter what dietary pattern you're following, whether you eat meat or you just eat plant-based products, you're going to have access to healthy protein either way. You're the one that makes the choices. So, for example, in my home, I try to make sure that I have options for both. So, for example, beans, right? All over the world, whether you Caribbean, African, Asian, we all have different sources of plant-based protein, whether it's beans like garbanzo beans, pinto beans. Give me another example of a bean that you can think of, for example.
Let's see the black eyed peas.
Black eyed peas, yeah. So that is a good source of protein. So, for example, with my black bean protein per serving size, which is about half a cup, we actually have 8 grams of protein in here. And if you think about other sources of protein, quinoa, right? This is a grain, but it's also very high in protein. And for those who are plant-based, or even for people who are not plant-based, this is a good source of protein as well. One of my favorites, peanut butter, right? A lot of us grew up on peanut butter. This is also a very rich source of protein. So for example, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is actually like 7 grams of protein. So if you are putting protein on a snack like toast in the middle of the day, That's an easy way of actually adding protein to your day. Then we have fish, of course, tuna. So this is
I
a
thought you
brand
were
of,
actually going to pull out a real fish.
not today. Dr. Viv, I have too much fun with you. Not today. Maybe next time I'll go fishing. This can of tuna, which is one serving size, actually has 32 grams of carbohydrates. And we're going to talk about later on how do I know how much protein I need. So this is high in protein. An egg, this is a staple in many homes, right? An egg. So how many grams? Like really, usually a medium size to large size is about 6 grams of protein. And then another thing, one of the things that I enjoyed growing up is a mixture of corn and
Mhm.
peanuts. So we would roast corn or boil it, and the same with the peanuts. I would either roast them
Yes.
and this is actually a protein-packed snack because we used to eat it as a snack. So to give you an example, a cup of boiled peanuts has 24 grams of protein, and a cup of boiled corn or shelled corn, because we would shell them first, is about 0.5 grams of protein. So altogether, if I was to snack on a cup of mixed nuts and corn, I would be getting anything between 15 grams to 30 grams of protein. And it's a healthy snack too, because if you think about it, the corn has some amino acids in there, some protein, the nuts is protein, there's fiber. So all of very nutrient dense snack. And then people always wonder about powders.
Yeah.
That's another source of protein. Is it necessary? I have to have protein powder. Not really. It's a choice. Because if you have a good variety of sources of protein in your diet, you don't have to supplement with a protein powder.
Awesome. That is amazing. I love the fact you mentioned corn and
Mhm.
peanuts. That's a really great snack in my house as well.
Right,
So, do you
right.
get all the essential amino acids, whether you're doing plant based or animal source? Is there a big difference?
Yes, there is a big difference because our bodies can make some amino acids, and these are called non-essential amino acids. But there are some, 9 of them, that the body is not able to make, that we have to get them from the diet. So these are called essential amino acids. This is where the difference comes in with plant-based proteins and animal-based proteins. So with plant-based proteins, not all those foods have all the amino acids that we need. But with animal-based protein, think of your egg, for example,
Mhm.
think of your tuna, for example, or your chicken breast, they have all the amino acids that we need. But when it comes to plant-based proteins, there are some foods that are missing those essential amino acids. But a caveat to that is that there are some foods that have all the amino acids. So things like quinoa have all the
Correct.
amino acids. Think about soy, has all the amino acids. So if you're on a plant-based diet, you need to take note of, am I getting enough of the essential amino acids? And Dr. Viv, it's really easy to do. It's all about food combinations. So if you were
Mhm.
to combine different kinds of sources of protein, you're going to find that you're going to get what you need, because what happens is some foods are higher in certain nutrients. If you think of corn doesn't have all those amino acids. But if I mix it with my nuts or other sources of protein or roasted soy, edamame, for example, then I'm getting those amino acids. So it's all about variety. When you have a varied diet that's not restrictive, then you're able to reach those high notes.
I have to ask this one because I'm sure my mom is listening and she's probably thinking what I'm going to say now. What about rice and beans or rice and peas for my Caribbean friends? Would that a combination of that contain all the 9 essential amino acids?
Absolutely, Dr. Viv.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, Dr. Viv's mom, rice and beans is a complete protein, provides you with a complete protein. And I'll tell you why. For example, rice is high in essential amino acid called lysine, and beans is high in an essential amino acid called methionine. So when you put this together, you're actually going to get the combination. I'm just saying these two as an example of how you would combine, because they have the other amino acids, but they now when you put them together, the ones that is missing in one is complemented. So that's what we call complementary foods. They are complementing each other to give you a whole. Other examples you can think of is pigeon peas. Some people eat pigeon peas with rice. So yes, Dr. Viv, it's very easy to get the full complement of amino acids even when you're on a plant-based diet, and no matter what dietary pattern you're following.
So my next question then is one better than the other?
No, not at all. So at the beginning, I mentioned that it's all about personalized, culturally sensitive nutrition, something that is realistic for somebody as an eating pattern or a dietary pattern is what we're going to work with to make it sustainable for them. But I will say this, that researchers actually found that plant-based dietary patterns seem to have better health outcomes than following a diet where you're eating meat, for example. One of the reasons behind that is when you're eating a protein that comes from plants, it doesn't come typically with the saturated fat, for example, or it comes with fiber, for example. Think of beans. Well, let me see if I can use the example of the black beans. So when you're eating black beans, saturated fat, 0%, protein, 8 grams. And then one of the other nutrients that I wanted to highlight, dietary fiber, 21%. So you're getting all
Impressive.
these other additional nutrients that, for example, if you're struggling with high cholesterol, the dietary fiber is going to be helpful. Animal-based proteins, there's the extra saturated fat that comes from animal sources. So that's where the research is finding that people who follow a plant-based diet seem to have better outcomes when it comes to heart health and things like that. But that doesn't mean that if I eat meat, I can't have healthy proteins. So when you look at the dietary guidelines, it will say or emphasize lean proteins, right? We always use that term, lean proteins. So what we're saying is when you go and buy your chicken and you're about to cook it, some of us love the skin, but that's where a lot of the unhealthy fat is. So look for lean cuts of meat. That's where your lean protein is coming in. Or if you're looking at a yogurt is a good source of protein. Instead of getting yogurt that is made from whole milk, go for the lower fat ones. So again, so there's things that you can do to make whatever dietary pattern you follow healthy. But plant-based proteins or dietary patterns are being found to have a lot of health benefits. So what some people do is that they decide that, okay, I'll be a flexitarian. What that means is sometimes I'll say, okay, no meat Friday or no meat Wednesday, and that works for them.
Okay, cool. That is
Yeah.
really nice to know that. So you can have maybe Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you don't feel like you're being deprived of chicken.
And remember fish too. The recommendation is about 2 servings of fish per week. So one of those days can be salmon day. It can be whatever fish you enjoy. And before I forget, Dr. Viv, how you cook the protein also matters. So even if I was going to have my beans, my pinto beans, my black beans, my black eyed peas, but I cook them with a lot of butter, or I add a lot of salt, or I fry them. All those things, they're going to affect whether it's going to continue as a healthy protein versus an unhealthy protein. My chicken breast, for example, and I cook it by frying it, put a lot of breading over it, and I fry it. That's going to make a difference with if I decide, you know what, I'm just going to bake it, or I'm just going to stew it, and I'm going to add a lot of different vegetables to it. So how you prepare the protein also matters.
You've been using the canned beans. I just want to make sure everyone understands that that's not the only sauce or the best
No,
way to eat beans. It's just an example of what you have available right there.
it's
So you can
example.
cook the beans from scratch. You don't mean that because you show the can, mean that we should forget the old ways of cooking and go all grab canned beans. And I know some of those are packed with sodium. So what's a good way to reduce the amount of sodium in those canned products if that's what's available?
Okay, so if that's what is available, go for the low sodium. So food labels are very important. When you look at that can, you want to look at the food label and say, for example, how much sodium does it have? So on the food label, it will have per serving size. So for example, this one serving size is half a cup, and half a cup, the sodium is 5%, which means that it has low salt. And this is based on a 2000 calorie dietary pattern. And if you are not able to get the low salt one, just soak those beans. So when you buy them, put them, soak them in a or wash them or rinse them. For example, rinse them in water for about 20 seconds or so to get rid of that. I actually prefer cooking from scratch. And I'll tell you why. Because I know what I'm putting in. They sometimes, depending on who manufactured or packaged those beans, there might be some extra ingredients that you can't even pronounce. But when I go to the store or the market, or if I'm able to grow my own beans, I go to my garden, I go to the store, I buy a bag of dried beans. I look at the label, it just says beans, nothing else.
Nothing
And
else.
when I cook it, I know I'm using maybe a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of salt, a lot of herbs and spices that I enjoy, and all the ingredients are things that I can actually pronounce. So, yes, but that's another conversation.
Now, how do you know if you're getting enough protein? I think that's the next thing people want to know. That yes, the now know good sources of protein. How can people tell
Right.
if they're having enough in their diet?
There is what is called recommended daily allowances of different nutrients. So what is it's based on the research that was done to say, okay, how much of a certain nutrient does somebody need based on their age, their physiological state. When I say physiological state, I'm thinking of, is the person pregnant? Are they breastfeeding? Or what age are they? Are they an older adult? Are they a middle-aged adult? And all those things. So based on those dietary guidelines, the recommended daily allowance at the moment is that an individual needs between 0.8 to 1.5 grams of protein per kg of body weight. So again, a lot of factors are included in that, and it's personalized. It's looking at your gender, your age, are you physically active, are you sick, are you critically ill, and so forth. But when somebody is heavier, maybe they're overweight, they actually need more protein too, so that as they are losing weight, it actually preserves their lean mass. They don't start to lose muscle. All you need to do is to multiply by 0.36. And if
Sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but you just took us back to math class, okay? I can already see some of our audience going, "Well, we don't want to be calculating every day. Can you give us some like simple things we can do at home that will give us peace of mind that we're probably consuming about the right amount of protein as part of our balanced meal plan? Because I can bet you no one is, everybody's going to be pulling out a pencil and a calculator every time they're trying to prepare a meal for their family. I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. I love it.
yeah,
We need to know the
yeah.
science, right? But for a busy mom, right, or single person
Mhm,
who's home just trying to make something, what are some
mhm.
clues? What are some things that they can look at to go, okay, I think I'm probably in the right ballpark here in terms of protein consumption?
All right. So I was thinking like a dietitian
We
talking
love
to
you for it.
dietitian. All right. So there are several things that you can do. Remember, how much you need varies from person to person and what's happening to you at that particular time. Let's say you are home and you're thinking, oh, how do I make sure I'm eating enough protein? Just follow your body and just follow the healthy eating pattern. Remember that plate we have used before, right?
Yes,
We
the
say
plate method.
the plate method, we say at least half of your plate should be
Non-starchy
carbohydrate,
vegetables. Yeah.
the non-starchy vegetables, right? A rainbow of colors of the non-starchy vegetables and fruits. A quarter of the plate, you have your carbohydrates, the other macronutrient, right? But half of that should be high fiber, whole grain. And then a quarter of the plate, that's where your protein is coming in. That is your lean protein. So when you're choosing your animal-based proteins, you're thinking, okay, I'm going to take my steak that doesn't have the extra fat, or
Yeah.
I'm going to get my fish, or I am going to use my plant-based protein, my bean, or I'm going to use a soy, tofu. So whenever you're thinking of, okay, what am I eating? What's for dinner? What's for this meal? Think of that plate and just follow those guidelines. So there are ways you can actually have protein with your meal and also with your snacks. And even with peanut butter, I grew up, we used to eat what we call porridge. Are you familiar with porridge?
Yeah,
Have
I
you?
am. Correct.
Okay. We used to make it from cornmeal and even milk and then add peanut butter.
That's a good source of protein and
Yeah,
fiber.
people probably are getting enough protein. And if you're not sure, and this is that nice thing you can do now in the day of the internet, you can keep a food diary. Just be aware of what you're eating, what you're drinking, and it will tell you how much protein you got for that day or for that meal. And then you can use that that equation or just Google it, right? Google knows everything. Just Google it. How much food do I figure out how much I need? And you can figure it out.
Perfect. Or better yet, if your insurance in that part of the world, I know this is not available to everyone. If
Mhm.
you're on that side of the world where insurance probably pays for you to see a registered dietitian, you might as well take advantage of that and have them help you with that
Absolutely.
calculation.
Absolutely. And I want to put a plug right there, Dr. Viv, that sometimes we feel that we only need to see certain professionals when we are sick. But it's even a better investment of time and resources when you see them prior, and then you get to be empowered to say, okay, this is what I can do to follow a healthy dietary pattern before I even get sick. So, yeah, if you have access to nutritionists or registered dietitian, that's a very good resource.
You've given us such great examples of how we can incorporate protein in our breakfast, lunch, dinner, and some snack options. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I actually had some little tips and tricks of how to do that, like a breakfast boost and dinner enhancements and lunch enhancement with protein. Maybe we can share that resource with the audience later on.
Absolutely. I think that would be wonderful. We could add that to the recording and have people have access to that. Thank you for sharing that with our listeners. That's amazing. Yes, we can include that. I guess moving on, I want to ask this question then. If you're incorporating or adding protein to your meal plan, does that mean that everything else you're doing is healthy? Is protein the beginning and the end of healthy eating?
Not at all. So I always like to use the analogy of the body, right? Every part of the body is essential. There's no saying, okay, the eye is small, it's smaller than my muscles or my legs, so it must be less important than the rest of the body. Each body part has a function, and the same goes with nutrients. All nutrients have a vital role that they play within the body. So, yes, protein has a lot of functions in the body, but we need to incorporate other foods as well, other nutrients as well. We need the carbohydrates, we need the fat, and that's another topic. We need healthy fat in our diet. And we also need the micronutrients, those minerals, those vitamins. So when you are choosing protein, remember your plate, it has to have the different nutrients. And we also need to add that you need to be physically active as well, because it's a matter of balance. We get calories from the foods that we eat, and we also get calories from protein. So if I'm eating more protein than I'm actually using because I'm not physically active, that protein, extra protein, is going to end up as fat after it goes through the different processes within the body. And that extra fat means weight gain. So we have to make sure that we are balancing the different nutrients that we need with physical activity and other aspects of a healthy lifestyle, like stress management, getting good sleep. So that is only part of the equation.
Now we are going to play a fun game. We always do this when we talk about carbohydrates. Let's do the same for protein. So I have a few questions here. You get to tell us if that's a myth or the fact, okay? So the
Mhm.
first one, you ready?
Yes,
All right. Proteins can raise your blood sugar.
that is
Tell me
correct.
more.
Current research is actually finding that protein does have an impact on blood sugars, but Again, there's a caveat to that. It depends on how much protein you are eating at that particular meal. So high amounts of protein, 50 to 75 grams of protein at a meal, can actually show moderate increases of blood sugars after a meal. So yes, it can impact blood sugars. It's not a myth. But again, it depends on how much. It also depends on the type of protein. But in the context of our discussion with blood sugars, the major macronutrient that's going to impact your blood sugar is going to be the carbohydrates.
Thank you for that. All right, the next one is you can't get enough protein from plants.
You can. So that's a myth. You can definitely get enough proteins from plant. The only thing you have to remember is that you have to make sure that you're getting complete proteins, but variety is key. And I want to add that it's actually beneficial to eat plant-based proteins because you're getting other nutrients that you'd otherwise not get from other sources.
All right. And the final one here, myth or fact, protein shakes are only for athletes.
Myth. You
Now
can
that's the
actually,
one that please I'll add to that, okay?
yeah.
Why you say
So
that is a myth.
because protein powders, yes, if you look at the origin of why they started being marketed, they were initially marketed at athletes, people were training and so forth. But there's benefits to people who are worried about not getting enough protein from their dietary pattern, or maybe somebody who wants to have a complete meal, but they are pressed for time. A protein powder, for example, that I have, this is not an endorsement, it's just one that I had in the house. So a serving size is 2 scoops and it's got 20 grams of protein. Okay. So what could I actually do is I'm rushing out the door, I'm rushing to work, I don't have enough time to make a breakfast. I could make a smoothie and 2 scoops of the protein powder. I now have 20 grams of protein. So now I have a complete meal because I've added protein. I probably added a banana also, which is the source of my carbohydrates. I added the greens, right? They have the plate of
Yes, the
vegetables,
kale and all that, yeah, or
the
spinach.
rainbow of colors. Yeah. So now I have a complete meal and I'm good to go. But I want to add something, Dr. Viv, and that's another conversation. This market is not regulated by the FDA. So not all the claims are checked by an organizing or authoritative body. So it's something that you'll have to look into to say, okay, is this a trustworthy brand? And there's things that you could do to do that.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that wonderful information and playing that game with us. We always love that when we do it at a part of the podcast. So we're wrapping up. We're towards the end now. Final words for our listeners. What would you want them to take away from this?
First of all, I enjoyed talking to you, Dr. Viv. It's always a pleasure. And I just want to say, enjoy your food. Whatever dietary pattern that you're following, enjoy it. Don't feel that you have to make drastic changes to what your eating habits were in terms of heritage or traditional foods. Whether you're following a plant-based or animal-based diet, you can always make healthy choices to follow a healthy dietary pattern. So enjoy your food, enjoy your protein, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Terry. We truly appreciate you. And as always, it's a pleasure. We always have so much fun doing this. And I can't wait for the next episode where we get to talk about healthy fats. So until next time, remember your health matters.